Hey, I'm here to give you my DVD review of All Star Extravaganza from 2002. Um, if you want to get one show from 2002, this would be it. This is the best show of 2002. Many people would agree with that, and it definitely does deliver. So basically, all right. So let's start off first. First, we get the SAT versus Special K versus Divine Storm versus the Hit Squad in like a four-way tag team scramble match. This is a good way to start off the show. The crowd was really into it. Uh, just a lot of great action. The Hit Squad look really dominant, really impressive. The Hit Squad are actually pretty big in Japan as well. They're not Japanese. They're black actually, but they're from Brooklyn, and they're actually pretty over in Japan because they have like that hard hitting smash mouth kind of style, you know. And at the SA, I have to say the SAT, these were probably the best, most exciting tag team in Ring of Honor at the time. They were kind of like the Lucha tag team. So yeah, this is a pretty fun match. Kind of a spot fest mixed with some hard hitting brawling. So next up, we get the number one contenders gauntlet. So we get a series of one-on-one matches, which is always a good thing. And so the first up we get Michael Shane versus CM Punk. This is CM Punk's debut match in Ring of Honor. It wasn't really that great though. I just Michael Shane and him just didn't click. Michael Shane was playing this. He was kind of like the top mid card heel at the time, so I don't know. A lot of his tactics were kind of like redundant and boring. And Punk looked okay though. I mean, obviously he got a lot better as the years went on, but it was a pretty decent showing from him. It wasn't bad because of him. It just these guys just didn't click. So we had a pretty much an average match, maybe 2.5 stars. All right, so next up we get Michael Shane ended up winning that match. So he would then take on Paul London next. Him and Paul London. Michael Shane and Paul London. This was one of the biggest feuds of the year. Actually, they had a street fight at Back and Unscripted. That was in September. This actually took place in November. So this took place in November 2002. Him and London didn't have that long of a match at all. London kind of just barely got the win with the DDT in like maybe 4 minutes, and then Michael Shane didn't want to shake hands, so Tommy Dreamer came out. This led to a big Tommy Dreamer Michael Shane confrontation. Yeah. So next up we have Paul London taking on the Amazing Red. This is short and sweet, but this is pretty awesome. London and Red pulled off some innovative stuff. Red did a lot of like nice high flying moves, and London did some really really cool stuff as well. So didn't last that long. So Paul London ended up getting the win again with the he won with the shooting star press. And so next up we get Paul London versus the American Dragon Bryan Danielson. Yeah, so Danielson came out, and him and London just had a nice match. I mean, this is probably the weakest match they had in Ring of Honor, only because it didn't go too long. Obviously, with London already had wrestled two matches, you couldn't expect this to go that long. But while it lasted, I thought it was great. As soon as Danielson got the cat of mutilation on him, London kind of tapped out right away. So that was kind of disappointing, but they did work pretty well together. So next up, we get a excellent, excellent underrated match here. We get Christopher Daniels, Donovan Morgan, and Samoa Joe versus Low Key, Doug Williams, and Homicide. Uh, Christopher Daniels and the Prophecy was stacked at the time. They had Samoa Joe. This is when Samoa Joe was with them. Donovan Morgan was with them. So yeah, the only reason Joe was with them is strictly for business. Joe and the Prophecy really didn't last that long. But as far as this match goes, it was excellent. It was all these teams dished it out to each other. It was pretty fast paced. Homicide looked like he belonged with these guys. This is pretty much Homicide's biggest profile match to date. Just a lot of great action here. Just a lot of high flying stuff mixed in with a lot of great wrestling, mixed in with a lot of stiffness and just great stuff here. All six of these guys could work. So this was just a great six-man tag match. 4 stars easily. Yeah, so after the match, this was kind of what started this whole Samoa Joe Christopher Daniels feud. Joe wanted to shake hands. He wanted to uphold the code of honor, but Christopher Daniels, he was against shaking hands. So he was pissed off that Joe went ahead and started shaking hands with everyone. But Joe made it clear that he was just with the prophecy for business. He didn't give a shit about whether Christopher Daniels was cool with him shaking hands or not. So yeah, so that was an excellent match. That was this is one of the most underrated matches of the year. No one talks about this, but I thought this was great. So next we get the Carnage Crew versus Dunn and Marcos, the Ring Crew Express. This is why people bash 2002 because they remember shit like this. I mean, the Carnage Crew is basically a bunch of construction workers that hate their wives and they hate their jobs. So they just come to Ring of Honor to take the frustrations out on people like Dunn and Marcos, the Carnage Crew. So yeah, this is kind of like a squash hardcore match. It really didn't. I'm really not a fan of this kind of stuff, but um, 2002, 2003 had a lot of this kind of stuff. So next up we get the ROH World Title match. We get Xavier versus Jay Briscoe. Xavier actually defeated Low Key for the belt at Unscripted back in September. So this is the title match against Jay Briscoe. At the previous show, the first Glory by Honor, uh, Jay Briscoe and Xavier had a non-title match, and Jay Briscoe actually received the match because Christopher Daniels wanted Xavier to face the biggest loser in Ring of Honor. So Mark Briscoe came up to them backstage and said, "Oh, the biggest loser in Ring of Honor is my brother Jay Briscoe. Take on him." So when Jay took him on, he actually beat Xavier in the non-title match. Well, here we had the official ROH World Title match. All right, so with that out of the way, as far as the match goes, it was kind of like, oh man, it was tough to watch, but I'll give him the credit here. It was pretty dramatic. Xavier, I'm not a big fan of him. I definitely think it was a mistake to put the belt on him so soon. And the only reason they did it was just to make Christopher Daniels look powerful, like he had control over the ROH World Champion. So I don't know. But Xavier, he busts out some pretty cool moves, but he just can't. I just don't like the way his pacing is. I don't like the way he works a match. Briscoe, I don't know. Jay Briscoe, obviously he got a lot better since then, but he tried to make this match as good as it could have been. These two worked a pretty decent match. Jay Briscoe got busted up. It was pretty dramatic, but Xavier ended up getting the win. So next up we get the main event. During this time, Ring of Honor was kind of like co-partners, or I don't know. They really worked a lot with the 0-1 guys. Steve Corino was from 0-1. I think Homicide worked in 0-1. Joe worked in 0-1. And what's the other guy? Low Key. All these gentlemen pretty much had an association with 0-1 out of Japan. So for this show, they brought in two of 0-1's biggest stars. They brought in Shinjiro Otani and Masato Tanaka. Obviously, we've seen Tanaka in ECW against Mike Awesome, so he's not a stranger. So Otani is very unique as well. He does a lot of like brutal, the Samoa Joe style of kicks where he just gets the guy in the corner and just starts stomping his face. He does that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, both these guys have a lot of talent. I thought Corino and Low Key kind of looked out of place here. He just didn't have the size to match up with these guys, but uh, I thought this was still a very excellent. It was like kind of a Japanese style main event at the Murphy Rec Center. The crowd loved it. Corino looked good as well. You can see why Corino has a big following in Japan. He's got a great size, and at the same time, he's a pretty decent wrestler. He can move. He's pretty athletic for his size, and I thought this was just pretty good stuff. Pretty stiff, pretty solid. Very solid tag team wrestling match here to close off the show. So yeah, this is probably the best show of 2002. You get a lot of quality wrestling here, stuff on here, and I forgot to talk about the match of the night as well. The match of the night was AJ Styles versus Bryan Danielson. This is one of the best uh, matches of the year. This is a 2002 match of the year candidate. This is great mat work here. This is excellent, solid mat work. This is probably the best mat work, chain wrestling I've seen since WrestleMania X7 actually. So yeah, and AJ and Danielson just worked a great match. There was the spot of the match is probably when Danielson went for a back suplex and then AJ just flipped in midair That was crazy. Danielson kicked out of the Styles Clash, and then Danielson had counter mutilation on him and countered it into like, or Danielson put the counter mutilation and put it into kind of like a, you know, into a pinning predicament, and AJ kicked out of it for a near fall. That was great. This is a great match, and AJ hit Danielson with a super kick uh, outside of the guardrail. That was pretty unexpected. And yeah, like I said, this is the match of the night. This is one of the best matches of the year. This isn't listed on the DVD cover, so that's why I forgot to talk about it. But yeah, this is the number one contenders Gauntlet Finals. So AJ actually won and got the title shot at the next show against Xavier. So yeah, All Star Extravaganza, definitely a great show. Definitely pick it up. If you're gonna pick one show from 2002, if you want to show that from top to bottom, great wrestling, I definitely recommend this is the show to get.